I got this email concerning you a couple of weeks ago. Hey, Frank. Wanted to drop a question in for when Dani is on the show, if there's a chance you can squeeze this in. I was wondering how she feels about our devolving language as a whole and impact it is having. Growing majority of people, especially the younger generations, do not know how to speak or write properly. I would be willing to bet most Generation Z couldn't read cursive, let alone write it. But on a broader scale, we now abbreviate so many words with the help of text lingo, emojis, predictive keyboards. A whole new language of internet slang has appeared, and you can scroll down any comment section and see what looks like a foreign language if you aren't familiar with it. In my opinion, the deeper this goes, the harder it will be to pull out of, and the more ignorant and unrefined our society will continue to sink. Would love to hear her thoughts on this. Thanks a lot, Frank. Kenny.
Thank you for that, Kenny. I'm so happy that you brought that up. I completely agree. I think it's another demoralization campaign that's contributed to our swift devolution. I think it's tied in with the transhumanist agenda because it's getting people to speak in truncated language like computers and computer programming. I find it extremely frustrating. I have a no tolerance policy with it. So if someone says, a word like totes or fave, I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like I will request the enunciation of the entire word. It's like we're so lazy that we can't be bothered to waste the cardio on all 3 syllables. We have to truncate it to just one. Or there was also this similar thing with, the celebrity couples where they put their names together.
Oh, yes.
It's all the same op to just make us dumber and more like computers and less able to function in society.
Well, I always said that the emoji is the new hieroglyphic. I said that this is going to be, the more and more this is, we're just going to be, because, how complex can you really get with those? You're talking about very simple sigils that you really just want to get some simple things across there. And sometimes one sigil will just give you an idea of an entire thought in one tiny little, one-dimensional, two-dimensional object. And it's very weird, and I said it's going to be the new hieroglyphics. The only thing is that the ancient Egyptians, they were a very advanced society, and hieroglyphics was a very advanced form of text and writing. This is something completely different. It is infantile. The letter writing, I can tell you about that. I write cursive exclusively. I will be teaching my daughter how to write in cursive, but I want to talk to you about that in particular. Just the micro motions from the wrist to the hand to the paper to the pen, all that stuff that really it's such a invigorating exercise there. But I even every once in a while when the the autocorrect is off and I'm writing a letter on paper. Sometimes I feel the pressure even now too, and I write a lot of letters, but I get used to even having that autocorrect there and a word suggestion pop up, and suddenly when I'm just staring at a piece of paper, I'm like, oh wait, I'm back in the era of whiteout. We're doing whiteout again, Frank. You can't white this out.
Yeah, I want to speak to the emoji thing because I think the other piece that differentiates the emojis that we're dealing with now from the hieroglyphics is how they've inserted the race baiting op into it with all the different skin tones. And hieroglyphics didn't have that and didn't have that like distinctive awareness and identification with all these different shades of melanin, which is shredding our human family to pieces while also trying to homogenize us through this like very narrow set of emotions we're allowed to have. And yeah, I think there's something very different between writing with our hand and what that's doing to our brain and how that's connecting us to the spellcasting that we will get into, that language is, in terms of using language to create reality and, activating different hemispheres of our brain. I think it's very important that we keep that practice alive. I'm very happy to know that you're going to be teaching your daughter cursive. And I think it's important for me as a writer. I find myself sometimes getting a little bit too dependent on the computer, and I will force myself to write an essay by hand. And there are certain things that invite me to write in different ways. So a few years back, I was assigned an article on the gene keys, which is this like very deep spiritual transmission. And I just knew that I wanted to handwrite it and didn't want the computer to have anything to do with what wanted to come through. So it's, it's very different process, just in terms of the process and in terms of connecting us to the ideas that are coming through when we're handwriting them versus when we're on the computer, which is also why they have us sign things, because the dark magicians know that a handwritten signature is quite different from typing our name.
Oh yes.
So they still haven't gotten away from that practice.
No, yes, it's important there too, and I think what your earlier comment about how this is tied so closely in with the transhumanist stuff is, I mean, you can't lose that point all throughout this. I mean, even some of those emojis now, they have, they break things down into skin color and all that, and always trying to keep you differentiated from the a yellow man is just not enough. It's just not enough. It would be suppressing somebody's inner expression. But the fact that they have emojis of pregnant, what it looks like to be a pregnant man, but it's just a woman in a crew cut that happens to be pregnant. I mean, the fact that messaging is baked into everything too, where you are again gender bending and trying to instill in people that those who cannot have children actually can, even though it's just a switch of definition and not a switch of a body. It's so it's invasive.
Maddening.
It's maddening. It's abrasive. It's completely insulting, and it's scary because they have the momentum right now. That's the sad part.
Yeah, that is the really sad part. Since we spoke last, I've left all social media, and I had a pretty big following on Instagram, but it was too frustrating. I couldn't keep giving my emotional center, like the health of my nervous system, to these platforms that are censoring and unfollowing and suppressing, and they do have the upper hand. And it is a very frustrating moment for those of us who see what's going on and actually care about the well-being of humanity.